Welcome to the B2G Victory Cast. This episode introduces you to the Houston LGBT+ Chamber of Commerce with our guest, Tammi Wallace, CEO, President, and co-founder. Tammi will answer questions about the LGBTQ+ certification, their commitment to opportunity equity, economic development, and the support of the greater Houston LGBT+ community. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to the B2G Victory Cast. I'm your host, Susan Repka, and I'm joined today by Tammi Wallace, co-founder, president, and CEO of the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Tammi, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here.
Very excited to hear about all the great news about the Chamber. But let's start out with a little bit about Tammi. So how did you come to Houston?
And so that is such an interesting question. We talked about this a while back. But, and what brought me to Houston is really takes me on this path of the work that I do today. But what brought me to Houston is I came to this great city to go to Bible school. I grew up in a very fundamentalist religion, thought I was going to take the traditional path of church, be a missionary's wife, that type of work. And unbeknownst to me, the universe, whatever you want to say, had a different path, and that took me in a completely different direction. But it really was a coming out process for me, from leaving the Bible school, but also leaving the church. And finding a whole different path. Ultimately, I decided to stay in Houston. I came to Houston from Mississippi. There was a Bible school that was much closer in Jackson, Mississippi, and I've often said that had I wound up in Jackson, my life would be drastically different than, considering I wound up in Houston, Texas, which has given me such a remarkable opportunities to do great things, and now leading me to the work I do today on behalf of the Chamber.
Well, I tell you, the LGBT community in the Houston area is very lucky that you took this path.
Thank you.
So the Chamber's been around for about 6 years. So what was the vision behind starting the Chamber here?
Well, so I'm one of the co-founders, as you mentioned, and Gary Wood is our other co-founder. I often referred to him as my chamber husband when we were working to launch the chamber. But when Gary and I looked around, there was an LGBTQ+ chamber in Austin, in San Antonio, and North Texas. They don't like to be called Dallas. In North Texas, and obviously there was a huge gap not having a chamber in Houston. So we immediately said, look, we've got to fill that gap. But from an even bigger picture perspective, we also looked around and saw that the LGBTQ+ business community didn't have a voice in the city and in the region, and we had to change that. So we opted to work together with the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, or the NGLCC as they're called. And today we're an active affiliate of the NGLCC and almost, 7 years in doing this work.
Oh, it's been an amazing journey. So talk a little bit about the certification. What is the benefits for that, for the LGBT businesses to get that certification?
Well, so the LGBTBE, or Business Enterprise certification is it's available to business owners that are 51% or more LGBTQ+ owned. The certifying body, the third-party certifying body, is the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So again, this is one of the things that we do in terms of our affiliate relationship with the NGLCC. We actively work to recruit businesses in the region to get certified, and the NGLCC certainly does the actual certification from a national perspective. And what I love about this certification, we often say that the LGBTBE certification is, the certification itself is national, connecting our members and our businesses into a wide array of resources at the national level, including over 400 plus corporate partners with the NGLCC, a mentoring program, all the things that you can imagine to support small businesses. And then everything that we're doing regionally, if you're a member of our chamber, your certification fee is waived. And then you get access to everything we're doing, from networking. We have an LGBTBE cohort that we do. We just had our inaugural year. Everything that we're doing to support businesses to help them scale, grow, and thrive.
Wow. So what is the importance of large corporations or even small businesses like B2G Victory of joining the organization if we're not certifiable, so to speak?
Well, one, to help our focus our mission on economic inclusion for the LGBTQ plus community, and very specifically LGBTQ plus, and we have allies in our mission as well. But it's really important that organizations are part of the chamber to help us push that work forward. It's good for the LGBTQ plus community. We see many companies, like your company, wanting to raising your hand, saying, "We're here. We want to support. We want to be involved. We want to be engaged." We see that with our 40 plus, corporate partners across the board. But also from an economic lens, it's important that we have a thriving LGBTQ plus chamber in our region. We have companies we know that are thinking about bringing business to Houston. We have prospective employees that are thinking about, do I transfer with my company? They're Googling us every day. And when they can find work like we're doing at the Greater Houston LGBTQ plus chamber, when they find that and they can see, oh, wait, there's a little bit more under the hood here. I need to do my research. And then they can begin to see the inclusivity that we know and we see and we love about Houston.
So if a company came to you and said, I qualify for this certification, but I am concerned that if I become certified, I will lose some of my current clients. What is some of the advice you would give them?
Yeah, that's not only a great question, but that's a reality that happens frequently, and even beyond the certification. Just if you can imagine, just joining the chamber, right? Being seen, being visible. For example, in our chamber directory online. And that conversation has happened frequently, and that goes something like, well, first of all, we understand that for every business owner, for every LGBTQ plus business owner, it's a journey. I often say many of our LGBTQ plus owned businesses, they come out, many of them may be out in their personal life, but when it comes to professionally and their companies, maybe not so much. Yeah. I had a business owner that actually overheard a conversation I was having at one point at a downtown hotel. And I was having a conversation with one of our board members, and we finished up the meeting. She caught me before I left, and she said, I want to hear more about, the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber and this certification. We talked about it, and then she said, I just can't be out, though. I'm scared of losing clients. I'm scared that if they walk away, what would I do? So that's why it's another great example of why our work is so important at the chamber, because we're trying to build economic opportunity for these businesses so they can truly choose to work with clients where their values align and work with clients that absolutely support them as LGBTQ-owned businesses. At the end of the day, it's business, but to value and appreciate what they bring to the table as LGBTQ-owned businesses. And for those business owners to bring their full and authentic selves, there is nothing like being able to bring your full self to the table. When you have to hide parts of who you are, whether it's with clients every day or in the workplace, it's incredibly, incredibly painful.
I'm sure it is. So, why is it important to the chamber to increase the number of certified companies that are joining?
Well, we want to make sure, ultimately this is about driving economic opportunity and inclusion for the LGBTQ plus community. And like any certification, right, it is creating that seat at the table, if you will, through these certifications, at least access to opportunities. So we need to make sure that LGBTQ plus owned businesses have that access to these opportunities, like you see with some of the other certifications. And, by the way, some of our members actually have multiple certifications, as you can imagine, right? Because women-owned certification, minority, disabled, veteran, etc. So, but, that's just such a perfect example of being able to bring their full and authentic self in every certification that they qualify for. We think it's very, very important that as many businesses get certified, get access to opportunities, but also we encourage them to use that as a tool to show and reflect that they're an LGBTQ plus inclusive business here to support the community and part of the community.
So some of the work that you have accomplished has made headways with the City of Houston.
Yes.
So the City of Houston now recognizes the certification. So are you finding more of your businesses willing to get that certification because of that, or what impact has that had on your companies?
Well, it's definitely raised the visibility for the certification, and that's part of what we're working on. And one of our primary objectives over the next couple of years is just to bring awareness to the certification. A lot of business owners just don't even know that it exists, and that goes for the chamber as well. So we're continuing to work on that. But when you can get a monumental win, like getting the certification recognized at the City of Houston, and huge credit to Mayor Turner for signing the executive order to make that happen, and his team. It just speaks volumes. Yes. And we said at the time when we signed, we had to do a virtual signing. Unfortunately, we couldn't be at City Hall because we were right, more or less in the middle of the pandemic. But we said at the time that this was not just a win for LGBTQ-owned businesses, but this was a win for our city. It's a win for our region. Again, when people can Google and see these types of wins, when they can see a mayor that's putting a priority on making sure every business has access to opportunities at the city and is supported through the city. So we have a lot of LGBTQ-owned businesses. Maybe they were already doing business. We know they were doing business with the city. But for the first time, they can walk through those doors at a given department, at City Hall, as their full and authentic selves. And you just cannot put a price on the value of what that means to those individual business owners to be able to bring their full selves to the table.
So let's sort of changing gears. There's a lot of networking opportunities with the Chamber, and I'm sure that means you probably need volunteers.
Well, we do. We literally have been growing since we launched in 2016, even during the pandemic. So I'm incredibly proud of that. And with that growth, of course, as the number of events have grown, the number of programs that we're doing have grown. So yes, we absolutely need volunteers to get involved. I have to give huge shout out to our amazing board, our chamber board. They roll up their sleeves and do great work on behalf of the organization. But it's really important that, we need to keep this forward momentum going. And it's really interesting for us as a chamber. I'll reflect back to 2017, let's say, when we launched. Someone said to me, "I love this chamber." And then another person said it, and another person said it. So I started asking, because I hadn't been involved before, I started asking, what is it that you find so special about our chamber? I hadn't been involved in other chambers, I should say, before. And they said, I feel a sense of community here, of connection. People are they genuinely want to help. We want to continue to grow the chamber so we can continue to cultivate that, spirit of support, collaboration, and lift up these businesses and our community as a whole. And so we don't do that without amazing volunteers like our board and others that step up to help us make a difference.
So like most chambers, it is about helping businesses get business. You also offer programs for the individuals that work at large corporations that are part of your community.
We do, and this is probably one program I'm extremely proud of. We've got, like I said, almost 40 corporate partners at this point. I think we may have just hit 40. And with that, you can imagine there's a lot of LGBTQ plus employees within those companies. So some of our incredible supporters, Amagi Bank, Chevron, Shell, United, Bank of America, and the list goes on and on. What we wanted to do through our LGBTQ plus Workplace Alliance program is engage these employees, HR professionals, DEI professionals across those 40 corporate partners. We want to do that because we want to make sure that they're supported. It's something that we can do in terms of adding value for our corporate partners. But we also want to connect them for the sake of the community. When we can connect employees and create this network of people that hasn't existed before, that's a huge win for the LGBTQ plus community. Not to mention a huge win for the chamber when we can create those kinds of connections and they can reach, pick up the phone, text one of, their colleagues at another company, give them a call, have coffee, say, how did you push forward LGBTQ plus inclusion in your company? Because we're trying to figure that out. And we have a lot of new companies that are coming to us, and they're just starting what I call this LGBTQ plus economic journey, this LGBTQ plus inclusion journey. And we want to be there to support them. And they're not ready to have a full-blown employee resource group, but they are ready to take the first step. So when we can bump them up against leaders from Amagi and some of these other companies that I mentioned, and they can share best practices and offer support, that's an incredible win. It's a win for those employees. It's a win for the company's community and the chamber.
So I've done a lot of strategic planning with nonprofits. So one of the questions I always ask during that, if you had unlimited money, unlimited resources, where would you see the chamber in 5 years?
Well, that is a really, really good question. So, but I can't answer that because I am thinking, 5 years out, and so a couple of different paths. One for the chamber itself, and I say that because we also launched a foundation, a C3 arm in 2020, which a lot of chambers do. Typically, they'll run scholarships for their C3. We're thinking a little bigger than that on the C3 side. But with the chamber, there's so much work that it is just completely untapped. And you think about, well, okay, what does that mean? But as an organization that's at the intersection of business and community, and in our case, the LGBTQ plus community, what we can be doing to drive economic opportunity through programming around our certified businesses, through LGBTQ plus tourism, increasing partnerships like we have with the British consulate, our international partnerships, the Mexican consulate, other consulates, right, to connect business owners, even across the world. We are the fourth largest city in the country and an international city. All of these pieces we want to grow tremendously, and it all ties back to economic opportunity and economic inclusion for the LGBTQ plus community. On the foundation side, we want to drive workforce development, training, financial literacy, even businesses that actually want to start up. They're not ready to sell product or service yet. And be on that chamber side, if you will, we want to support these entrepreneurs and help them get started. Again, tying back to economic opportunity and inclusion. The LGBTQ plus community is generations behind when it comes to economic opportunity and wealth generation. And when you think about, why that might be, we've experienced, systemic discrimination. And, a lot of our business owners, they've started their businesses because they felt such discrimination in the workplace. And every time maybe they were in the workplace, they got fired, or they had to leave a job, they start a new one, get fired, they have to start. Every time that happens, there's potentially a loss of income. There's a loss of upward mobility in terms of the career trajectory. So that's the work that we have to do to help to begin to address this economic gap that exists for the LGBTQ plus community. And when we do that, it's not only good for the LGBTQ plus community, but it is good for our city and our region and our state.
You are doing some amazing work.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Let's kind of wrap up with a victory moment.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm really proud. We've had, you've
had lots of victory moments.
We really have had lots of victory moments over the past 7 years. But I think just reflecting back, when the pandemic hit, a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses
closed their doors.
Yeah. They just decided, I've never been, I liken it to, so I think there's two people in this world, and everybody has their reasons, but there's the people that you see a wall in front of you and you figure out how you're going to go through it, around it, over it. Either whatever it looks like, you're going to scale it and you're going to get through it. And then there's others that just move into the fetal position because, they don't know what to do. Yeah. and it's a lot. And whatever people chose, organizations chose, they had their reasons. We had to make that decision in 2020. And I looked at our board and I said, this is the time that we have to step up the most. This is the time that our community needs us the most.
Yes.
So it is important that we figure this out. And I am telling you, I listened to a podcast from one of our members today where she was actually talking about how the chamber helped her when she was trying to figure out her lease. We got her connected to one of our commercial realtors to help navigate her lease provisions. And because of that, they are thriving today because she was able to help, navigate through the pandemic, and that put her on the right trajectory starting from the pandemic. Connected businesses to PPP, one of our businesses to the restaurant revitalization loan that quickly ran out. And one of our congresswomen told him, look, if the chamber hadn't told you as soon as they did, you probably wouldn't have gotten that money. All these kinds of wins. So these are all the victories on behalf of our members that we were able to sustain and grow during the pandemic and make sure that we were there for them when they needed us the most. And that's what we're going to keep doing.
So those success stories that you hear from your members, that's your drive. That's what drives you.
It is what drives me. I want to see our members, grow and thrive. But I also want to see our members be able to walk through the doors. I think that's what we do at the chamber. They can just walk through. If they're having to wear a certain type of armor on a given day because they're interacting and not able to fully disclose who they are as an LGBTQ plus identified person, it drives me every day that we can say, walk through our doors. We're here. Take off your armor. Be who you are. You are appreciated, you are supported, and you are valued at the chamber, not only as a member, as your business, but as a part of this community.
Thank you very much for joining us today. You have an amazing story. I'm looking forward to seeing the LGBT plus community just really increase the membership in the organization as well as the economic results of all of your
Thank
work.
you. So much work ahead, but so many great things we can do.
It takes a community.
It does. It does. And when we literally can lift up a community, again, that's not good just for that community, but in our case, it's really, really great for Houston. We need thriving communities in our city, including the LGBTQ plus community. And that economic lens, that piece of it, is so important for communities that have traditionally not been around the table.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.